Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Early Wedge here on CBS Sports Network. We've got Mike McClure, we've got Jason Sobel, and gentlemen, we've got the Tour Championship. We are in the midst of round two. They had to move up tee times due to some expected weather. And Jason, when I look at the top of this leaderboard, not surprising, right? We were thinking ball strikers, granted, top 30, a lot of good ball strikers in there, but ball strikers keeping it in the fairway, that's going to rule the day. And so far, so good on that.
Yeah, Sia, it's a great point. Look, we're not going to have a bad leaderboard at a tour championship. You've got 30 of the top players on the PGA Tour. It's pretty impossible to get a leaderboard that doesn't have a bunch of superstars on it. But yeah, we look at ball striking, and East Lake Golf Club is a sneaky long golf course. We think of it as more of a second shot golf course, but more than 7,400 yards is a par 70. Long and straight is going to be more important this week than usual because they're playing ball in hand. Once again, means if you hit it in the fairway, pick it up, clean it off, put it down, hit it again. Guys like Scottie Scheffler and Ludwig Oberg, who hit it long and straight, are going to have an advantage this week.
Impressive leaderboard indeed here, Mike. And you have always some impressive picks. I knew Ludwig was at the top of your list. Tommy Fleetwood and Cam Young were at the top of my list. We had a lot of guys from the early wedge who had Russell Henley. Talk to me about how you think, I would say the rest of this tournament is going to go. We see Scheffler down there at 7 under. I mean, I'm still thinking he's going to win this tournament, but any surprises to you at the top of the board? And I know you're big on your guy, Ludwig Oberg. How you thinking he's playing so far? It looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think Ludwig's playing great. Currently leading the field tee to green, losing a little bit on the putting surfaces, but not, a massive loss by any means at this point. Was a little disappointed with his round yesterday. Like we still cashed round score unders extremely easily, but I thought he left a good 2 strokes out there yesterday. So it's nice to see him right now. Currently 3 under on the round. As far as other surprises, I don't know if I would call it a surprise that Colin Morikawa is sitting where he is. We talked about him a lot on the early wedge this week. We had some optimism there. I think it will be interesting to see if he's able to maintain the rest of this round. He's through 5 now. If he's able to stay top 5 after today, I will feel pretty good about his chances going into the weekend as well. Other big surprises out there, I guess. Chris Gotterup, very disappointing in round 1. Complete opposite here in round 2. 6 under, beautiful round. For him, it just seems to be the last few weeks, the consistency of putting 4 rounds together like he had, in the previous few tournaments. But still reminding us that he probably does belong in the top 30 players here.
Jason, it's interesting because we had a lot of people kind of crash and burn yesterday. I mean, in terms of their score looked okay, but then when you look at their score relative to everybody else, and Chris Gotterup is one of them. Mav McNeely didn't have a good day. Sepp Straka had a horrific day. All 3 of those guys, really, Keegan Bradley's another one, really turned it around today. What does that speak to? Because part of me thinks some of these guys showed up and they had a bad day 1, and maybe the rest of the way they're going to just collect their $355,000 for finishing in that 30th range. But it looks like at least through Friday, all of these guys are kind of dialed in.
I think what it tells me, Sia, is that, yes, first of all, no one's giving up. You might see it on Sunday when a guy's like 13 shots back and just wants to get out of there and catch the earliest flight home. But on a Friday, no, these guys are all still in it. And what it also tells us is that, yes, even though we've got really elite level players like Henley, Fleetwood, who, granted, they both struggle to close, especially Tommy. But Scottie Scheffler's up there, Ludwig Oberg, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa. These guys who have won big tournaments time and again, even though they're up there on the board, if you're sitting at 3 under, 4 under right now, kind of middle of the pack, you've seen the scores that are out there and you say, I could go 63, 64 on the weekend and make a serious charge up this leaderboard, maybe even try to win this thing.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm looking at Scottie Scheffler miss what was a very makeable birdie putt. And Mike, one of my frustrations yesterday, because, we do the early wedge, we do our DFS shows. I pretty much faded Scottie Scheffler. You largely did as well. I did bet in without Scottie Mark, but I'm still not, I don't want Scottie to be running away with it. And he hit so many putts outside 25 feet, which again, if you're looking for a different type of winner, it is frustrating, but we did just see Scottie bogey the par 4 fifth. He's going to par an easy hole in the par 5 sixth. You think there's a chance for some of these guys at the top, like your Ludwig Obergs, like your Cam Young, who's putting a good round together, Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley, or does this feel like a situation where it's just another Scottie win on Sunday?
It doesn't feel like it's just another Scotty win just yet, but again, we are very early into his second round. Like, there's a chance that he still rattles off a 6 under
Yeah.
on this particular round. The thing that's most exciting to me is the fact that he's not 3 or 4 under through 4 or 5 holes here in round two, and the fact that it does look like we're going to get a very competitive finish the rest of the way. So that part's really appealing to me. I found it interesting that Scotty is actually not inside the top 10 in terms of tee to green so far this week.
Yeah.
Is actually with the putter, so it hasn't been pure dominance that we thought. He did a great job getting the round where he did yesterday. We were actually texting off air, and it kind of just felt inevitable that, like, yeah, Scotty's still going to get this to 6 under at least, right? And he did. So it's very early to say that he's not going to for sure go win this tournament. But as a fan and someone who's invested in other places across the board, certainly exciting to not see Scotty 3 or 4 under already on his round.
Jason, go ahead.
Two things, Mike. Two things strike me, guys. One is the fact that exactly what you just said about Scottie Scheffler. He's doing it more with the putter so far than the ball striking. We're used to seeing Scottie Scheffler just far and away the best tee to green. That hasn't happened over the first round in a third, I guess. 24 holes into this thing. What it does remind me though is last week at the BMW Championship. It's basically a mirror image of Scotty was the best putter in the field over the first 2 rounds last week. And then on the weekend, the ball striking came around. The putting stayed at a pretty high level. And lo and behold, he goes and wins this thing on Sunday afternoon. The other thing that really strikes me right now that I think is going to be very intriguing as we get to the weekend is exactly what I mentioned a few minutes ago, which is the two guys that we have at the top right now, Russell Henley and Tommy Fleetwood, are struggling to close out golf tournaments and have been for a while. Russell Henley now is a 5-time PGA Tour winner, but that's over the last, 12 or 13 years? The one win that he has in the last 3 years was at the Arnold Palmer Invitational earlier this year when, quite frankly, Colin Morikawa was in the driver's seat. Henley hits a chip on the 16th hole on Sunday afternoon that hits the stick. It would have, I guarantee, Henley said afterwards, oh, that was going to stop a few feet away for a tap-in birdie. That thing was flying off the green. I still say that 5 months later. And if that ball doesn't hit the stick and go in, Colin Morikawa wins that comfortably, and it's an entirely different year for Morikawa and different year for Russell Henley. Instead, the narratives have completely changed. That said, Russell Henley still struggles to close out golf tournaments. He talked afterwards about how nervous he was over 3 and 4 footers on the final 2 holes at Bay Hill. And then there's Tommy Fleetwood, who we all know how much he's struggled to close out golf tournaments. He laughed about it the other day, saying, yeah, it'd be kind of funny if I was to go out and win this event and go out and win the FedEx Cup, considering I've never won on the PGA Tour. I think it's coming. I think it's maybe not an inevitability, but Tommy Fleetwood's playing like one of the best players in the world right now and has been for a long time. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes out and wins this one. Also wouldn't surprise me if he gets into the lead at some point on Sunday and it doesn't happen once again.
Yeah, that last part wouldn't surprise me at all. Mike, it's interesting, and we're going to look at the betting board more later in the show, but when I look at it now, I see Russell Henley surprisingly minus 125 over at BetMGM. And I see Scottie Scheffler at plus 350, and then just a small drop off to guys like Tommy Fleetwood and JT. It does seem like, last week Robert McIntyre sort of was running away with it, but Scottie was in distance, right? It does seem like it's more bunched like this time around through the second round. And what I mean by that is more bunched with very talented players. Cam Young charging, Shane Lowry just 7 under today, which is pretty ridiculous. But Ludwig Oberg, Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley, it does feel like, to your earlier point, that this might be a scenario where there's so many guys at the top with Scotty that one of those guys, whether it's Fleetwood or somebody else, could stumble into a win here.
Yeah, I think there's a number of guys that can stumble into the win. And you mentioned Shane Lowry shooting 7 under. It's not just one player, right? We've got multiple people in the clubhouse at 64 or better already. And that's after what we saw in round one. So I think the thing that's important to note here is, yes, it's the best players in the world, but this course for them is playing pretty easy. And the fact that we're going to see 6 under in every single round of this tournament, in my opinion, I think that there's definitely scenarios where you can be looking a little further down the board. Names like, how about Cam Young, still 20 to 1 right now, just one shot back. We've seen the upside that he's got. Ludwig's down to 25. I mean, even Rory and Colin both 16. It's definitely a situation where I'm not looking and feeling great about backing, say, Scottie at plus 150 currently. That's not something that I'm ready to go jump in on yet, considering the fact that I think we're going to have six unders out there every single round.
Cam Young and Tommy Fleetwood were my pre-flop plays from the early wedge. Cam was at 20-1 without Scottie, and Tommy Fleetwood was 10-1 without Scottie. So certainly hoping those two acquit themselves very well at the end of round two. More selections coming up. I want to talk maybe some outrights. We kind of alluded to them, Mike and Jason, some finishing positions. We're done with matchups because everybody's out on the course, but we're going to talk maybe some betting principles, but also some actual bets coming up next on the early wedge. I'm updating the current odds here at the early wedge at BetMGM Central. We got Scottie Scheffler at plus 165, Russell Henley at plus 350, and then a drop down to Tommy Fleetwood at plus 600. I got to say, Cam Young is really having a nice round, 5 under through 13. Before we talk about some guys who might sneak inside the top 10 or top 5 for finishing position plays or who we think is going to win this tournament, Jason, I do want to ask you about the Tour Championship in general. We know we have a new guy in charge, and I don't know if changes are coming immediately. It certainly sounded that way. But before we get to the expected changes, can you address how you feel the FedEx Cup playoffs are currently in their current state?
Yeah, so see, it sounds like this is being called what's they're referring to as a bridge year, that having all 30 start at even par, play it like a normal tournament, the winner takes the FedEx Cup, that's just sort of a gap to get to whatever the future of this is. I've been covering the FedEx Cup now since it started back in 2007, even before that, when they first announced that they were going to have playoffs at the end of the year. And there are two main problems with the FedEx Cup. One is, and Rory McIlroy said this beautifully before the BMW Championship last week, the fact that you're trying to balance having the most entertaining product for the fans, giving the players the best reward for playing their best, the entertainment product of for the media partners, the rights holders, and then of course appeasing the sponsors. And that's a lot of mouths to feed. Right now, they're kind of giving a little nibble to each one without giving a full meal to anybody, because it's hard to just say, okay, we're going to prioritize one of those factions over the other. The other problem with this is that the PGA Tour has never really defined what the FedEx Cup should be. Is it a season-long race to determine the best player over the course of 8 months? Is it a postseason sprint to determine who the winner is of the playoffs? Look, in other sports, whether it's the World Series, Super Bowl, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, you guys know the best team during the regular season often isn't the same team that wins the championship. I think we have to wrap our minds around the fact that Scottie Scheffler is the best player on the PGA Tour. He's the best player in the world. And sometimes the best player might not win the playoffs. As long as we kind of wrap our minds around that and understand that, I think they can make this a true postseason sprint. But again, the PGA Tour needs to better define it. This isn't criticism as much as it is empathy for the process, because quite frankly, whatever they do, if it's, hey, let's make it a sprint and the final 3 events determine the playoffs winner, people are going to say, Scottie's the best player, he should be the winner. If they make it a season-long race, people say, that's not a true playoff. I get it. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But at some point, we at least need a better definition of what this really is.
Yeah, Mike, you cover all sports, and it's interesting to me because I do think the damned if you do, damned if you don't thing is there. Like, people are going to complain about, especially if something's new. Like, some people will embrace it, but most people will be like, I don't like new. I don't like this new process. I would have come up with something better, in spite of the fact that those people that say that don't have anything better to offer. Is there anything that you think other sports do, that whether, because you cover tennis as well, other sports do that you think golf can do to make this more serious? Or do you like how it is right now?
I think it's a very difficult problem to solve. I think a lot of what Jason laid out makes a ton of sense. And I do think it's important that the best golfer throughout the course of the season, the best golfer in the world, doesn't have to win the championship. I do think that the best player like that has earned a spot and will always have to earn that spot and have the right to go compete there. How I personally would like to see it, I wouldn't mind seeing just four golfers on the course for the final tournament. That's it. Just four golfers out there figuring it out. Like something like that, I think could be very interesting. And I know from, a financial standpoint, it may not make sense. I would push back a little bit that we've seen things like individual match play, things like that, that really can still bring in the same kind of ratings and do that. But I think the answer is a regular season champion and a postseason champion, and just figuring out ways. But I'm not a big fan of the bridge year that we've got going on here, personally. I wasn't a huge fan of the stroke play as well either. Again, it's a very complicated situation in kind of an individual sport like this, that does become difficult to navigate. But for me, I wouldn't mind seeing multiple rounds whittling down the size of the field to having a final tournament where it's essentially kind of like match play.
Jason, there are some issues with match play for the sponsors and just the TV coverage alone. And I know match play is super popular. Like a lot of fans are like, yeah, like match play, like make a bracket one-on-one. Can you just speak to some of the issues, maybe some of the hidden issues that people don't appreciate when it comes to match play events?
I'm sure some polling has been done. See, I do think if you did a poll right now and asked fans what they wanted from the FedEx Cup championship, from the Tour championship, they'd say, I want to see match play. I think that would be the majority vote. I always say, careful what you wish for, because what happens with match play, essentially, one of the things is, to use a journalism term, it's an inverted pyramid. The first day is more exciting than the last day. Each day, as you progress forward, is a little bit less exciting. And yes, if we get Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy in the final in a match play format at the Tour Championship playing at East Lake for the grand prize, it would probably be fantastic. We'd all watch. We'd all tune in. If we get, I don't want to call anybody out, Jacob Bridgman against Sunjay Im on Sunday afternoon at East Lake, all of a sudden you're like, maybe there's some other stuff I'm going to change the dial and see what else I can watch. And look, that's exactly what the PGA Tour, what the rights holders, what the sponsors want to avoid. And then you throw in the fact that the players really don't want match play. They all know that match play is wildly volatile, and that if, on any given day, anyone can beat anybody else. And quite frankly, you can play great golf. You can go out and shoot what would have been a stroke play 64. You lose to a guy that would have shot 63, or even lose to a guy that would have shot 65 or 66 and actually would have shot a worse score than you, and all of a sudden you're out. That doesn't seem fair either. I know that we're not dealing in fair, we're dealing in entertainment. I wouldn't mind seeing it, see how it played out. But again, it's, for me, careful what you wish for. I know a lot of people would like to see it. It doesn't always work out the way you think.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of match play, but I haven't figured out the problem, Jason, of what you spoke of with whether it's Jacob Bridgman versus Sung Jae Im, and I love me some Jacob Bridgman, by the way, so how dare you? But whether it's those two or even like Scottie and Rory, I agree, that's compelling. Scottie and Rory way more compelling, but there is that, like, they hit the shot and then you got no other shot to go to, and then, you know what I mean? Like there's just that delay there. Mike, you had something to add as well.
Yeah, I think cross sports thing I want to talk about here. I actually think NASCAR does a decent job of it now, where they are whittling it down. So they have a round of 16, 12, 8, and then the championship 4, but all of the other teams are still out there competing at the same time. I know that can get a little interesting with golf, but still make these like elevated events throughout the playoffs in terms of purse, allowing other players to go out there and compete and again, still shake things up in terms of the standings, but it would just simply be, finishing inside that top 8 to be eligible, just like it is now. But rather than sending all of the golfers home, still having, some of them out there in some way, shape, or form that could also potentially have a little impact on the way the others play.
Speaking of finishing inside the top 8, I have a follow-up. Go ahead, Jason. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, see, I just want to counter that real quickly, because this is what the PGA Tour used to do. And Mike, I don't know that it's the worst idea, but I do know they didn't like, and I think the guys with the trophies didn't like, back in 2009 when Tiger Woods won the FedEx Cup and Phil It's a scenario like 2017 before we got the staggered scoring start where Justin Thomas won the FedEx Cup. He lost the Tour Championship. He came in, they handed him a trophy. They said, "How does it feel to be FedEx Cup champion?" He goes, "Man, I should have made some more putts down the stretch. I'm so mad at myself right now." And that wasn't the rhetoric that they wanted from the FedEx Cup champion after winning the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah. So what's interesting, I agree with you, Jason, on that. I did also want to point out, by the way, that the top eight, this feels like the World Series of Poker, like main event. I don't know if this is compelling to either of you, but the top eight are going to make $1 million or more. I guess with it, and we know that the winner makes 10 million. Scottie Scheffler will make 10 million when he wins, and Rory McIlroy or whoever finishes second place, it's not going to be Rory, will win 5 million. Is that part of this compelling to you at all, Mike? I'll start with you. Like the top eight are going to be in the million mark. The bottom's going to be 300K plus. I mean, these are like afterthoughts of afterthoughts, are they not?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that would it mean a lot to a lot of them to win the 10 million? Yes, of course. Winning right at that 1 million mark with the career earnings and the earnings that they would have had to have this season just to simply be in that final position. It's not necessarily as significant as it may seem. So yeah, I mean, I think what matters is just winning, first place. That's really all that matters here.
Any follow-up, Jason?
To me, there's nothing less compelling than watching
Yeah.
multimillionaires many times over winning more millions. Look, I'm happy for Scottie Scheffler if he wins the $10 million first place prize. Good for him. He's going to get a text alert on Monday morning saying, your direct deposit has been this. And he's going to go, that's cool. And it's not going to change his life whatsoever. If it's not going to change his life, I'm not going to get too excited. There's maybe the rare case. I mentioned Jacob Bridgman again. I'm not picking on him. He's probably, though, lowest on the career earnings list of the 30 players in this field. And so if Jacob Bridgman was able to win this week and get the 10 million, that could be life-changing and career-changing for him. I could be into that as a fan, but otherwise, it's just rich get richer. I could not care less about how much money any of these guys make this week. Sorry, guys. I'm happy for you, but that's about it.
Totally agree. Totally agree. What I do care about is money that I can win. So coming up next on the Early Wedge, we're going to take another look at the leaderboard and talk about maybe some guys who can win this tournament, not named Scottie Scheffler, some guys who can top 5, top 10 this tournament, some guys we're looking for on the weekend to maybe be good in some matchups. That's coming up next on the Early Wedge. We're back on the Early Wedge on CBS Sports Network. I'm joined again by Mike McClure and Jason Sobel. Mike, I want to take a look at the betting market. There's a lot going on the course right now with some guys putting up big scores, some guys putting up very mediocre scores, which may give us an edge over the next couple of days in terms of whether it's matchups or finishing positions. Talk to me about a couple of players you've got your eye on.
Yeah, well, number one, I'm still going to be on Ludwig. He's having a rough little stretch here, but you're going to find him around -110 to -120 on a top 10, including ties. I fully expect him to continue to battle. And then same thing can be kind of said for JJ Spawn. JJ Spawn's not had a great round today. Sitting down T25 right now, you can currently play him top 20, including ties, around -120 to -125. That's appealing to me. I'm projecting him based off where I see the field and how I see everything's playing out. Just simply needing to gain 2 strokes here over the final 2 rounds. And I think that that's very, very doable for a player of the caliber of JJ Spawn. So I like his live top 20, including ties right now.
I absolutely love that as I'm staring down a Cameron Young putt that I'm interested in. Another birdie for Cameron Young. Like, let's go, Cam Young, who I have in the betting market, but also in DFS. I like the Spawn look quite a bit. I'm also looking, Jason, to fade a couple of guys. We'll see, because a lot of people are in the middle of the round, but Harry Hall's not. And he has just been such a short game monster. I think I'm going to look for him in matchups if I find the right guy to fade, because while the short game is super important, the ball striking just isn't there for him. So guys like him, Matsuyama, maybe Andrew Novak, those are guys I'm going to be looking to fade over the weekend. Again, if I can get the right matchup. Who's a guy you have your eye on?
Yeah, so first of all, Sia, the inherent problem with the Tour Championship and only 30 players playing is that you can't really find too many guys to fade. These are the best of the best, and yes,
Yeah.
not all of them have been in great form over the last month or two, but you don't really have guys who have been struggling the entire year. Sungjae Im probably fits that bill. I'm not totally convinced that Corey Connors is fully healthy from that wrist injury of a couple months ago. I think he's just kind of playing out the string to collect all the FedEx Cup bonuses that come with it. But if this was middle of the season, we might have seen him sit out a little bit longer. Other than that, there aren't a whole lot of guys that are playing right now that I don't like, that I say, okay, I'm going to hammer a matchup, whoever it is, just because I want to fade a certain player. Of the guys that I do like, take a look at Robert McIntyre. We saw the heartbreak of last week where he had a 4-shot lead through 54 holes and then gave it up to Scottie Scheffler on Sunday. Did not play his best golf in the final round at Caves Valley. That said, he leads the field in strokes gained tee to green if we include the around the green wedge play so far through a round and a half. He's playing some good golf and he's scared of absolutely nothing. McIntyre has shown that he likes the spotlight. He's played some of his best golf in major championships over the last few years, including a runner-up finish at the U.S. Open just a couple of months ago. I think McIntyre could be a guy. If we see the likes of Scheffler, and again, Scheffler's the big wild card here. If you're playing him outright, you need Scheffler to fall off the pace a little bit. But if you're looking for someone to jump past the Henleys and Fleetwoods and Cameron Young's trio of guys who have all struggled to close out golf tournaments for years now and have only gotten two of the last 20 on the PGA Tour that they've been seriously in contention for, well, McIntyre could be that guy.
What I find so interesting, Mike, and so dangerous at the same time when it comes to trying to bet this tournament, especially over the next couple of days, is what we're seeing from let's say the non-ball strikers, or to Jason's point, the guys who weren't necessarily in the greatest form, putting up ridiculous scores. Like today, we had Shane Lowry go 7 under. Chris Gotterup went 7 under. Mav McNeely went 6 under. Keegan, who hasn't really been that good lately, and we can talk about him in the Ryder Cup perhaps later on in the show, he goes 6 under, I believe. How do you, when you see that, it tells me that this is a course where anybody can go low. And is that a point of emphasis for you from a betting standpoint where you're like, okay, maybe I got to take a couple steps back here?
Yeah, definitely. Anyone can go low. And it's also still, as Jason's reminded us a couple times, it's still a product of the fact that you've got, in theory, the 30 best golfers on the course. You definitely have 15 of them. Like half the field for sure is inside the top 20 in terms of being the top 20 golfers in the world. So you've got elite talent on the course. It's always difficult to separate when you have such a small field. Like a 30-person field is so much different even than some of those signature events with limited fields. It's a very, very different game. But it also speaks to just how easy the course is playing right now, whether it be just the way the weather conditions are, what's allowed in terms of the rules package being played under. I think that it's just a situation that you do have to be cautious in betting some of those outrights early. I personally would be waiting, third round. You've got so much golf left to play. And the other thing that's, compounding that and the going low, there's nothing to lose. We've talked about it already. Like everyone's getting paid here. It's really like it's first or last mentality as it should be. And when you get that with nothing to lose, I think you will see some more variance in terms of those low scores.
Is there a quick follow-up? Actually, Jason, go ahead. And then Mike, I have a betting sort of a macro question for you.
Yeah, see, I don't know what our live play-by-play restrictions are. I've made the case with the PGA Tour for years that once it's happened, it's not live anymore. So this isn't a live play-by-play situation. It already happened. Scottie Scheffler hit one in the water on 9. He's in a 3-way share of second place, 1 behind Russell Henley, but he's going to be making a bogey or worse on number 9, the par 3.
Right, and he had just birdied the 8th. So that's an interesting piece of information there. Mike, I was going to ask you that macro question, but let's just go back to the top of the board here. We're looking at Scheffler probably making bogey or worse, but that's really only going to put him a couple back of Russell Henley, right? So it's certainly not a disaster for him, depending on what happens the rest of the way. But Cam Young, 6 under. Russell Henley only 1 under through 8. We've got Tommy Fleetwood up there. He's 3 under. Scottie Scheffler, we'll see. Bobby Mack, who Jason referred to, Colin Morikawa kind of handling himself. He's 2 under. He's 2 back of Russell Henley. Anybody that you're looking at right now, again, we've only been doing this show for about 30 minutes now. I don't know if your mind has changed, but that you would be willing to maybe take a flyer on.
It might be Bobby Mack, Jason's guy here. When I look at live updated data after Ludwig struggles, it's now Bobby Mack leading the field tee to green so far, a gain in every single category. And we saw what he was able to do last week. Yes, that included not getting the job done. But as I like to remind people, we get the talk about not getting the job done. You have to be playing well enough to be in a position to not get it done. So I like the way he's playing. I think he's well within range there. Colin Morikawa as well. Again, we were very optimistic about Colin heading into this week. He is doing it all with the putter, which is insane. Not all, but a lot of it with the putter. You look at every single strokes gain category, the biggest positive spot for him so far this week is the flat stick. That's either really scary for the remaining rounds or really, really good, right? Because if he gets the flat stick figured out on approach, there's no one better. Like when he's dialed in, there's no one better there. So if he comes around back to kind of where that baseline had been, and I'll remind you, over the last 24 rounds, he was still second in strokes gained approach in this field. It's all really been the putter that's been his issue, in my opinion. So the fact that he's doing so well with the putter right here, if he can kind of get into the clubhouse 4 or 5 under today, I think we could see Colin make a run at this still.
It'd be very interesting. And again, we'll talk about this later in terms of guys who might win this thing that we'd be very, almost like we'd chuckle at a little bit. Not because they're bad golfers, but they're just coming in where the sentiment was so bad on them. Guys like Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay certainly fit that description. By the way, through half of round 2, Colin Morikawa is gaining pretty significantly in the approach category. So that is standard Colin Morikawa stuff there. All right, we got to take a break. We still got a lot to talk about, including some other potential winners, some Ryder Cup implications. We're going to cover it on the Early Wedge next. We're back on the Early Wedge, and Jason, I understand that Scottie Scheffler was in the water, but he's got a par putt here she missed. Okay, so a bogey for Scottie Scheffler. You were right, but classic Scottie Scheffler. Oh, am I wrong? Jason, what happened?
That's a double, I believe, for Scottie. No, just a bogey?
I think it was just a bogey. Yeah. That was a par putt that he missed. So he drops from 9 under to 8 under.
Did that ball not go? That ball must have stayed up then. My mistake.
I think it might have stayed
not
up.
Have gone in the water. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why they're showing the water. I didn't see the ball splash. Okay. My bad, everybody.
It's all good. Well, he got a bogey anyway. Let me ask you this, Jason, about the Ryder Cup, because there's still some decisions to make by Keegan Bradley on himself and on some others. So far through 2 rounds, is anybody impressing you so much that you think they're impressing Keegan Bradley? We're talking about the likes of Ben Griffin or Cam Young, Sam Burns, Goddard, and many others, frankly.
Look, I don't know how much Keegan Bradley is taking recent form into account because, yes, when we get to the Ryder Cup next month, you want the quote-unquote in-form, the hot golfers. That said, we're sitting here watching this, and you might be hot one day and not hot the next day. You might be hot for a stretch of holes on the front 9 and go cold on the back 9, so form is very fleeting. I'd like to think that Keegan's mind doesn't work like the rest of us, where we go, Cameron Young just made a birdie. We're going to put him on the team. And then, Morikawa just bogeyed. He's off the team. Like, I don't think Keegan is looking at things quite in those terms. He's taking a more long view type of approach and looking at who fits the golf course. All of that said, I think it's a really good week for Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, and Patrick Cantlay to have a good week. Now, Thomas and Morikawa playing much better today so far than Cantlay is. I think all 3 of them are on the team, but at least it boosts the opinion publicly and maybe the backlash. If those guys are named to the team and don't play well, you at least want them playing well coming into this. So I think that helps make Keegan's decision a little bit easier. Cameron Young has to be right there right now. I think he's probably on the team unless something goes horribly wrong, but he's only 1 back of the lead right now and playing some very good golf. Again, doesn't hurt to play really good golf the week before the picks are made, and they'll be made next Wednesday, August 27th. And then I say Ben Griffin is on the team as well. And then that last spot to me comes down to whether Keegan wants to be a playing captain or not. Rory McIlroy said last week that he's at least been asked about whether he'd like to be a playing captain. He said, no, I don't think he can work. I don't think he can do it. And so I wonder if Keegan is having second thoughts right now as to whether he can even try to pull this off or not. He does have 5 assistants, 5 very capable assistants, including Jim Furyk, who's been a Ryder Cup and President's Cup captain in the past and should be able to help him out with whatever decision-making he needs when he's on the golf course if he chooses to do it. I would have no problem with Keegan being on the team. If he decides he's not going to play on the team, I would think it comes down to Maverick McNeely or Sam Burns, maybe Chris Gotterup. I don't think Jordan Spieth really stands a chance after being eliminated a few weeks ago from the playoffs, but that last spot is pretty much anybody's ball game right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I saw that interview where Rory very quickly dismissed the thought of being a player captain. And I almost felt like 30 seconds later, he tried to backpedal it a little bit because he knew what that statement's implications would be to Keegan Bradley. It's not that he actually backpedaled, but he softened it a little bit. Like, oh, I don't know what Keegan would want to do there, saying, oh, it might be okay for Keegan, but not okay for me. Thought that was very interesting. Mike, let's take a look at the leaderboard here. Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley, Cameron Young making that charge, Scottie Scheffler right behind. Your guy, Akshay Bhatia. Is he your guy? Akshay Bhatia is 4 under. He's at 8 under here. So guys like Akshay, Robert McIntyre, who still, Jason, I know you talked about him, he was great last week, but doesn't necessarily get the respect to be, expected to be in the top 5 here. Morikawa, Lowry, Gotterup. I mean, this is the top 3 are not, the top 4 are not surprising to me. I think the next 6 to me are a little surprising.
Yeah, a little surprised. I mean, look, I'm very surprised that Shane Lowry rebounded with the 7 under. I thought that it was a scenario where Shane Lowry could have finished last in this event after shooting even par. That was well within the cards. Gotterup, very impressed with his rebound. Cam Young, he's potentially going to shoot 8 under in this round. He's tied up there. Speaking back to the Ryder Cup situation, I don't know how Cam Young's not one of the selections. I think that, we try to not get too emotional over recent form, but man, I think that it's very clear that where he's at right now. As far as Akshay, he's kind of my guy at certain events, typically not in an event like this with a field this loaded. But yeah, the way he's playing right now, if he can get this in the clubhouse at 10 under or more, he's not out of it. He's definitely got the skill set. We've got a very bunched leaderboard here. I think that's, I'm watching Colin Morikawa very closely. I think that there's a shot that Colin could still get this round to say 5 under on the round, and he's not out of this tournament.
Jason, remember, he didn't win last year, Mike, but he was the low. He did have the low 72 hole score of everybody who played. So it's not like this is a foreign concept for Morikawa to go to East Lake and play some really good golf.
Yeah, winner of the shadow leaderboard, if you will, right, Jason? Talk to me about Rory McIlroy.
By the way, Cameron Young has just made his 5th birdie in 6 holes, moves to 10 under, in a share of the lead with Tommy Fleetwood and Russell Henley. And guys, I am all in on a Young Fleetwood Henley 3-way playoff on Sunday afternoon to determine the FedEx Cup with the 3 players who have probably struggled to close out golf tournaments more than any other elite players over the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Give me all the Cameron Young. I absolutely love this guy. I've been betting him the last couple of weeks. Let's see if that holds up over the next couple of days. One name we haven't mentioned, Jason, is Rory McIlroy. It's not like he's having a terrible tournament. He's 6 under. I mean, he's inside the top 11 or tied at T11. Why aren't we talking about him? I mean, it does look like it's been very kind of underwhelming. He's losing with the putter today. Ball striking isn't particularly great. What are your thoughts on Rory McIlroy?
Look, as you can see, a very clean card there. Hasn't really gone on the Rory birdie binge that we tend to see from him, especially at this golf tournament. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens tomorrow. I would not count out Rory McIlroy whatsoever. Only Well, I was about to say 4 shots back, now 5 shots back. Tommy Fleetwood with a birdie. They're getting birdies in bunches out here. This leaderboard is flying all over the place. Tommy Fleetwood now in sole possession of the lead, but Rory only 5 shots back now, and that's hardly insurmountable with more than 2 rounds left to play. So I would not count him out. We should probably be talking about Rory more than we are right now.
Well, we'll see who we talk about when we come back from break. But if you watch the early wedge on SportsLine YouTube channel or on CBS Sports Network, you are very much in on Cameron Young and Tommy Fleetwood. So hopefully so far, you're having a pretty good week. Ladies and gentlemen, when we get back, we close shop here, talk about some potential winners that would maybe give us a little bit of a chuckle and who we actually think is going to win this thing. That's coming up next on the early wedge. We're back on the early wedge as Tommy Fleetwood has grabbed the lead at 11 under. But if we know Tommy Fleetwood, we know he's probably not going to have the lead when this tournament is over, Jason and Mike. But I do want to ask you, what's the funniest way this tour championship could end? The reason I ask, of course, is because we don't have staggered strokes. So like the quote, deserving champion, we talked about it earlier, who's probably Scottie Scheffler, he might not win this tournament. Jason, what would give you a chuckle? What's the funniest sort of outcome here?
So see a pre-tournament, I might have said Sungjae Im, who did all of his damage on the PGA Tour in January and February and has not even treaded water. He's just quite honestly been terrible at everything other than wedge work around the greens over the last 4 months. That said, if we're looking at a realistic situation right now, I go back to what I mentioned in the last segment. Tommy Fleetwood, Cameron Young, Russell Henley, the top 3 on the leaderboard right now. Give me a 3-man playoff to determine the FedEx Cup. Over the last 3 years on the PGA Tour, they have combined for 2 victories and 57 top 10 finishes. That's right, 57 between the 3 of them.
That's crazy. Mike McClure, what's the funniest outcome here?
I'll stick with the pre-tournament selection of Colin Morikawa. Just the sentiment was so low. It's not funny in the sense that he's like not a deserving player, not a top tier player, because we all know the upside that he has represented, but he hadn't particularly been close of late. A lot of drama in the media. To me, it would be the funny outcome. Colin Morikawa puts it all together, particularly if he does it like he is right now, which is gaining with the putter, where
Yes.
he's just been absolutely a disaster this season. So for me, the funniest outcome would be Colin Morikawa on 18 hits a long birdie putt to win.
Yeah, for me, pre-tournament, it was Patrick Cantlay for the same sentiment that we talked about, Mike, with Colin Morikawa. But let me flip the script a little bit. How about the most heartwarming winner? Jason, I'm going to start with you on this one as well. My answer to that would be Tommy Fleetwood, where I'd feel like really good about it, right? What's your answer to that one?
Yeah, I think it's Tommy as well. Look, Tommy has been so classy in, not only when he loses in celebrating with the other players and speaking with the media and speaking publicly and owning everything that happened to him in the stretch. I think that there are a lot of people right now because of that rooting for Tommy Fleetwood. We've seen Colin Morikawa and Rory McIlroy and other players not want to face the public after they've had poor rounds. Tommy Fleetwood has had no problem with that, and because of that, has a lot of people rooting for him to go out and do it this week.
Mike, your answer here.
Yeah, I'll echo everything on Tommy Fleetwood. If I had to give you it would be Akshay Bhatia or Robert McIntyre. I think McIntyre, after what happened last week, just kind of held it together here. I think it'd be fun to see. But out of nowhere, Akshay Bhatia, who's just a great guy, I would love to see him do that and what would be life-changing for him. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think those are great answers. Keegan Bradley's way too far back, but that would be like a really cool way for him to, put himself on the Ryder Cup team if he were to win. But again, he's at 6 under. He's not going to win this thing. Good stuff, gentlemen. Really, really good stuff on the Tour Championship. It kind of closes our season out, but more golf to come on the Early Wedge on the SportsLine YouTube channel. Mike McClure, Jason Sobel, thank you very much. We do a lot on that SportsLine YouTube channel. It's not just the Early Edge, of course, but it's also the Early Wedge, and you can see it Sunday at 10:30 in the morning. A lot of times we call that now the Early Hedge because we might hedge our outrights on that show, 10:30 on the SportsLine YouTube channel. Scan that QR code. And everybody, have a great Friday and a great weekend from us on the Early Wedge.